Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. But this hour, we're focused on the man behind another show inspired by a Nashville institution.
Oh, hear that old piano from down the avenue.
If there were no Grand Ole Opry, we might not know Garrison Keillor, who's sitting across from me here. He's been off public radio long enough that our newest listeners may not know him anyway, or at least certainly not like I do. But he has been at times one of the largest figures in the public radio realm. Late-night show appearances, the cover of Time magazine at one point. His show, Prairie Home Companion, ran for 42 years and continues as an occasional stage production.
Coming to you live from the Fitzgerald Theater in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota, where it really is winter and worthy of your respect. Minnesota Public Radio brings you a Prairie Home Companion. With our guests,
it was based on old-time variety shows after a fateful reporting trip to write about the Opry. 50 years later, still tours the country, sometimes solo, still sharing his thoughts, reciting poetry, and updating the news from Lake Wobegon. And I'm catching him now before his recent show here at the City Winery in Nashville. Garrison Keillor, thank you for joining This Is Nashville.
My pleasure.
Well, would you have imagined 50 years ago, when you started Prairie Home Companion, that you would still be getting up in front of audiences, at 82 years old?
I didn't think more than a year or two ahead. I started the show as a lark. It was unlike anything else that was going on in public radio. It started really with a visit to Nashville. I'd been to Nashville once before and saw the Opry, which I had heard on the radio when I was a kid. I came down to see the show. Roy Acuff was hosting it. Minnie Pearl was on it. And I decided that I wanted to write about it. I had been writing for the New Yorker magazine since 1969. I came down in 1973.
Well, take me to that trip down on this assignment from the New Yorker. What was the story that you were hoping to tell?
I just wanted to write about the last live radio variety show of the sort that I had grown up with. My parents were fundamentalists, and they wouldn't buy a TV for our home because TV meant Hollywood and movies, and that was the work of the devil. So we had radio, and radio was much more important to me than it was to other kids in the 1950s. And so the Opry was special. I gave myself the assignment. I told them I wanted to do it, and luckily my editor, William Whitworth, Bill Whitworth, was from Arkansas, Little Rock, and he knew the Opry, and he wanted the New Yorker to run this piece. So I came down and saw the show and wrote a pretty straightforward description of it. I didn't make it a memoir. I simply wrote about the people on the show, and Johnny Cash and June Carter were on it, Bill Monroe, and great stars from Marty Robbins was on with a very flashy sport coat, and I had a good time. I had a hard time writing the piece, but I finished it.
What made it hard? I mean, this was, I guess, a show you knew well.
I was a fiction writer. I wrote humor pieces. I was not a reporter. I wanted to be a reporter, but I had to discipline myself and cut back on the style. But having written the piece, I went to Minnesota Public Radio, and Bill Kling, who was the head of the company and who was my age, and who also remembered the Opry, and we started a Prairie Home Companion in a little theater in St. Paul, downtown St. Paul, with an audience of maybe 50 people, and called it a Prairie Home Companion.
What was the process of creating what it was? While I can see bits and pieces of Prairie Home Companion that are sort of like the Opry, or maybe the way the Opry used to be, it does feel wholly its own thing. And are most of these things, the characters, Dusty and Lefty, and Guy Noir, and the fake ads for the Ketchup Advisory Board, are these purely things that were just made up to sort of fill it out?
They were made up to bring in some other elements of radio back in my childhood. Radio serials, radio drama. Cowboys, The Private Eye, staples of radio back when.
A dark night in a city that knows how to keep its secrets. But high above the snowy streets, on the 12th floor of the Acme building, one man is still trying to find the answers to life's persistent questions. Guy Noir, Private Eye.
It was a cold day in January in St. Paul, and I'd open up the radiators and stuff the cracks around the window and wrapped myself in a couple of blankets and finally got to where I stopped shaking enough I could write legibly on a piece of ruled paper. Yeah, Guy Noir here.
Hey, I ordered my chicken 30 minutes ago, huh? What gives
But
you
we
people
had to
all
create
the-
commercials. The idea of a show without commercials was impossible. Commercials give you the chance, rare in public radio, to talk about ordinary life, ordinary, everyday life.
This portion of our show brought to you by the Ketchup Advisory Board.
These are the good years for me and Barb. My hair implants, the ones that grew down into my brain and caused numbness in my legs. They were replaced, and I got a raise at the paperclip factory.
Well, the segment that obviously is kind of outlived the show, not to say the show's not around in some form, but is the news from Lake Wobegon.
Well, it's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon, my hometown. Out on the edge of the prairie. It's been beautifully, bitterly cold here this last week. A time of year that we look forward to in our little town because the pace of life slows down. It's only so fast it can go anyway. And it goes even slower when there's a wind chill of 35 below zero. You walk from the car.
Do you have specific recollection of where that came from, and the kind of how something morphed into this little 20 minutes of, news about a town that doesn't exist?
Two comedians did similar monologues based on fictitious towns. Charlie Weaver, nobody is familiar with him now, but he was very popular and was on the Jack Parr Tonight Show regularly. But also Minnie Pearl on the Grand Ole Opry, and she talked about life in Grinder's Switch. She didn't go to the lengths that I did to create recurring characters. They were really a series of jokes, but she set them in a small town to give them a place. And that distinguished her and Charlie Weaver as storytellers from the typical stand-up doing bang, 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 bang jokes, joke, that didn't necessarily connect to each other.
You know, it's remarkable to me that I happen to be one of those people who gets your weekly reissue of the old news from Lake Wobegons that, you know, were, I guess they're from early to mid 80s. It's remarkable the same characters sound like the same people from 40 years ago. Did you know that you would be talking about those same characters doing the same kinds of things, 50 years later?
Well, the town has changed, and so I hesitate to talk about the changes. I do hint at it a little bit, and I let the town rest where it was. I've sort of moved on to more into the field of stand-up comedy, but I do a sort of variety show with some poetry and audience singing, if they will, and usually they will, and sort of essays about being 82 and the wonders of longevity.
We're going to get to that later this hour. If you're just joining us, our guest is Garrison Keillor, author, humorist, performer, octogenarian. We're talking in the green room, I guess you'd call it, here at City Winery before the show here in Nashville. I have to remember that not everyone knows Lake Wobegon as well as the two of us do. Obviously, you much better. But for those who are not familiar, could you show them around Lake Wobegon for just a second? Like, what do we got here? What is this town? Help us understand its essence.
Well, it's a little town on a lake shore, and with the Mist River running through town. It has a main street, and it has the Mercantile, a small department store. It has a bar, the Sidetrack Tap, and the Chatterbox Cafe. It has a Catholic church, Our Lady of Perpetual Responsibility, and Lake Wobegon Lutheran Church. The Lutheran Church is the predominant church, but Lutherans being Lutherans, they are proud of their modesty and don't make a big impact. It's very Midwestern. It brings up its children to harmonize with the group, to be part of the group, not to put too much weight on individual expression and prominence and wealth and so forth. You want to be in it with the others, because we are all in it together, and the fate is a common fate. So it's a town of modest people from which I escaped in order to tell their story.
The show, I think, was always live. Is that right? It was never a recorded show.
We did reruns over a few months of the summer, right. But it was live weekly, Saturdays at 5 o'clock Central Time.
And I kind of mean that the show was imagined as a live show, and I wonder, was that important, or was it really the only option? Tape was too difficult for something like that.
It was absolutely important, and people listening knew that this was an event that they were part of. This was not an arranged, edited, produced event. This was happening. And that appealed to, a certain sense that they had, perhaps an anticipation of disaster. I don't know, but it was a crucial part. For us, it was it just saved time. It saved a lot of time arguing about what goes in and what comes out. And it saved self-consciousness. You just did it. You did it, and you moved on. Yeah. And I have lived my life in that way. It's a great mercy. I don't remember those years nearly as well as a great many listeners I have come across. And they remind me, Alison Krauss was on the show. Well, I don't remember that, because it was live, and it just kept moving along. Brad Paisley was on the show. Well, wonderful.
More than once. I've seen him on there more than once. Well, this is fascinating to me because you have this remarkable memory. You I'm sure if I prodded you could recite any number of passages from Shakespeare or Emily Dickens or something. But that must be stored somewhere else besides what happened in a show in 1992.
I just don't remember. I remember scenes from childhood with utter clarity, and some other moments from my private adult life, but my show life is, I don't look back.
Well, one of your early producers said you're only happy when you're doing your monologue. Now, this was back when you were doing it all the time, but I assume referring to the news from Lake Wobegon. Were they right? Is that why you're still at it in some respects?
No, I'm happy when I'm singing a duet with a woman, and I've sung duets with a number of women. I sing most often with Heather Massey from the Waylon Jennings. I have sung with Christine DiGianardo. I sang a duet with Renee Fleming from the Metropolitan Opera, and that was a very sweet moment. I love singing harmony, and the monologue is kind of a fast slalom ski ride down an unfamiliar slope. And you think you know where it's going, but it can take strange turns, and you simply have to go with it, and you're often disappointed by the turns that it takes. I am astonished at things I have forgotten that I had meant to make the main point of a 20-minute monologue. I just am aghast afterward to realize what I have left out.
We'll be back with Garrison Keillor in a moment after a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about leaving the show to some degree and life after public radio. We'll be right back. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville.
The American Duct Tape Council brings you our show tonight. And congratulations to the construction crews who have worked so hard to finish the renovation of this historic Ryman Auditorium in time for our broadcast tonight. You did a wonderful job. Everything is still here. The great curved balcony, the church pews. But you know, any construction job is going to have its mistakes. And when bad things happen to good workmanship, you can almost always fix it up quick with a strip of duct tape.
Just spread duct tape.
We're joined by Garrison Keillor this hour. He had one of the biggest shows on public radio, Prairie Home Companion, based loosely on the Grand Ole Opry, following a fateful writing assignment from the New Yorker. Actually, an assignment we learned this hour he gave himself. He's sitting across from me here. We're at the City Winery before a show of his. I do wonder, why did you have to explain yourself when you decided it was time to leave the show? I mean, you were 73 years old. People don't, work forever.
I left impulsively, and there was really no explanation for it. The show had been very successful, and its success was confusing to me. I accepted the success, but it wasn't what I was in it for. And the success and the sense of obligation to an enormous audience and not disappoint them was hard work, but I was used to it. I think that I had an impulse, a mistaken impulse.
Mistaken?
To become a novelist. I had written a number of novels, all of them about Lake Wobegon, except WLT, a novel about a radio station. And I thought that was my future, that I should be a serious writer. I had been admitted to the American Academy of Arts and Letters, and with much more accomplished writers. John Updike was part of it. He was the one who got me into the Academy. Philip Roth was there, and Jane Smiley, and all sorts of other famous writers and poets. And I thought I should do serious work. And I very soon discovered that this was not my calling, really? That I had been doing my calling. I had given the show back to Minnesota Public Radio, and Chris Thiele became the host of it. And I had nothing to do with the show after that.
Really? Didn't write for it?
No, I had nothing to do with it. I left them entirely to themselves. And I went off and tried to write and was miserable doing it.
Well, why did you feel like you needed to do anything more?
I needed to accomplish what I had always meant to be. I had meant to be a serious writer. I looked back at my Lake Wobegon novels, and I felt that they were a product rather than a creation.
So are you talking about a project, a novel, that you have not published?
Yes, several, actually. Several.
So started and stopped.
Yes.
And now we're here. You know, a bit before, I guess Live From Here was canceled, but after your departure from the show, you were also dealing with accusations of unwanted sexual advances on the staff, and that became this whole mess with American Public Media, which is Minnesota Public Radio, but cutting ties with you, kind of right in the middle of a lot of the Me Too movement. It sounds like parties have generally moved on, I guess, or that's my read. But I do imagine that must have had a profound effect on you to go from kind of having this reputation as America's, kind of kind, quick-witted uncle, to people being like, well, is this uncle a little creepy or something? And I just want, is there any part of kind of this touring way late in life that has to do with kind of trying to repair that reputation, trying to prove that you are not that?
Well, the Me Too movement came in and I think changed the perspective of many people. The Me Too movement made an accusation into a conviction. The woman must be believed was the motto of Me Too. Without any sort of trial, without any back and forth, without any questions. And so it was a piece of injustice. When you've been as lucky as I have, you accept injustice and you move on. You can't fight a movement like Me Too. It was a scam, essentially, brought about by a man who had been fired by NPR after he had worked for Prairie Home, but he had worked as a freelance for NPR, and they fired him.
NPR, Minnesota.
Minnesota Public Radio, and had not paid him severance. He wanted severance. They have a policy of not paying severance to non-staff people. And so he persuaded this woman, who also was not a staff member. She was a freelance writer, and she was hoping to write for the show. She submitted sketches and monologue ideas and so forth for about a year and a half. We never used any of it. I think maybe she was paid something for the effort, but she was never a staff person. And she and I had a very brief affair, and that was the gist of it. So they did not file, they wrote up a lawsuit and threatened NPR and me, and but it never went to court, and that was my mistake. I should have let it go to court. You can spend a lot of money defending yourself in court, but I don't believe the woman would have cared to go to court any more than I did. But the insurance company was willing to pay the settlement. They settled for, I don't know, a fifth of what they had demanded. And I made the mistake of letting the insurance company settle it. And therefore it goes down as an admission of guilt. And I've never talked about it since, because the more you talk about it, the more it brings it up.
Yeah. Well, even what you're sharing here seems like more than I've heard from you, and you almost suggested previously that you weren't allowed to talk about it or something like that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No. But romance had been a common phenomenon in public radio. At Minnesota Public Radio, there were 3, 4, 5 marriages between staff members. And over the years that I was there, I lived with the producer of the show for, I think, 9 years. And so is this harassment? I don't know. Is courtship harassment? You tell me. A lawyer for the man who drew up the lawsuit, a woman lawyer, said, you can flirt up, but you can flirt up, but you can't flirt down. Well, I didn't think of the people around me as being up or down.
Even though you were the
I didn't
host
think
of the
of
show.
the woman as being below me. I don't think she thought of me as being above her. we just didn't think in those terms. Me Too was a very strange puritanical movement, and
Are you speaking in the past tense? Do you think that we've moved beyond that period?
I don't hear much about it
No, you don't.
anymore.
Yeah.
But it certainly had an impact.
Well, I mean, it seemed like it had an impact on your life generally. I mean, you were married at the time, and you describe it as an affair. You were,
I still am.
Right, to Jenny, correct?
Sure.
But, I mean, you all, obviously you spent a lot of your working life in New York City anyway, but, I had forgotten that you'd written on Facebook at the time, like, a writer who lives in St. Paul was seduced by the siren's call, then took a nosedive at 75 and survived, and God help us all. And I think we're sort of saying I'm headed to New York and out of Minnesota. I mean, was part of that kind of leaving, kind of some of the mess there?
No, that had to do with the show coming to an end. The show needed to be based in St. Paul. But once I was done with the show, I was free, and my wife, Jenny Nilsson, is from Minnesota, but she had gone to New York as a teenager to get some good violin teachers. She's a violinist, and she loves the city, and it was her turn to decide where we would live, and so we lived there. She loves Central Park and loves the museums, Carnegie Hall, the opera, and I could live any place.
How is life different being in New York City? I imagine it's easier to be anonymous there.
Everybody's anonymous in New York. It's a pedestrian city, and you move. The moment you go out the front door, you are in a river of humanity, and as diverse as can be. We live on the Upper West Side, which at one time was a Jewish neighborhood. Large numbers of Chinese and Hispanic have moved in. There's a Korean Baptist church 2 blocks away from us. There's a Hispanic Catholic church. It's a city of great variety. In St. Paul, you walk out the door and cars go past. And
But do you miss Minnesota in any way?
It's my home.
Right.
It's my home.
When we return, we'll glean more wisdom from Garrison Keillor, who's still churning out witty, biting, beautiful commentary on modern life, so stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. Our guest, Garrison Keillor, tall and bespectacled, with a voice like a warm wool sweater on a rainy day, hails from the gentle hills of Minnesota, where Lutherans bake quietly and gossip even quieter. Born with a fondness for rhubarb pie and stories that meander like the Mississippi, he spun Lake Wobegon into being a town where all the women are strong, the men are good-looking, and the children are above average. He writes like your favorite uncle speaks, slow, wry, and full of quiet wisdom. He found the extraordinary in the ordinary and somehow made silence and snowfall feel like an invitation. And that, dear listeners, is an intro as if written by Garrison Keillor himself, but a prompt to ChatGPT. Any edits, Mr. Keillor?
I'm not an editor of other people's work.
Oh, yeah, well, no, again, that was not even something I wrote. It was, I asked ChatGPT to write an intro for you as if it was Garrison Keillor writing, which you can have AI write in any style you like. You write a lot about modern life these days. I do wonder, any concerns or excitement about the potential of things like artificial intelligence?
Well, it's of concern to teachers that I talk to, college instructors particularly. AI is widely in use by students, smart students, who are using AI to turn out term papers much better than the term papers they used to write.
You know, on your weekly podcast, you sound as fascinated with everyday life. I do wonder how you're observing things differently. Like, what are you noticing that might have passed by 40-year-old Garrison Keillor?
I was extremely busy when I was 40. I look back and I was incredibly busy. I think that's the reason I don't remember my working life very well at all. My wife is astonished at how much I have forgotten about a Prairie Home Companion and the cruises and the tours and all that happened. It was because I was busy every minute, and now I'm taking it somewhat slower, and so I look around and I see life, and life is good when you are 82 and almost 83. You don't have time to be depressed. You have a short lifespan. You don't think about death. I don't think about death. I used to in my 20s. I thought about it a lot. Back when death would have been a tragedy. Now it's an obligation. But you look around and you realize life itself, say what you will about the president, the mad king who is president, say what you will about the tendency of this, the economy, international affairs, the threat of China becoming the major world, all of that. Say what you will, but life, when you come down to the day to day, is good and appreciated. I'm a man with a heart that's been repaired twice by very gifted surgeons, Dr. Orsolak and Dr. Diarni, at the Mayo Clinic, using procedures that were not available for my uncles, two of them who died at the age of 59 from the same defect that I was born with. And for this alone, and other reasons, and several teachers, I could name 3, 4, who made an enormous difference in my life. No, old age is the time for gratitude.
Well, you know, in what you write these days, you talk about all these things, whether it's like the difficulty of getting a simple prescription refill, the trouble getting an Amtrak ticket, online. But you also share in the wonders of modern life, like discovering that the iPhone can identify plants and bird songs. I do wonder, though, what do you make of the, screen-based life compared to the times of yore that you are so famous for talking about, of sitting on the radio, sitting on the porch, listen to a baseball game on the radio while the sprinklers hit the hydrangeas in the evening?
The screen-based life, if I understand you, is an obsessive life. And that's somebody else's life. I have been obsessive. I was an obsessive drinker for a period of time, and then I stopped. I was a chain smoker for a time. I stopped. It took me 2.5 days. I ate a lot of popcorn. I spent a lot of time in the public library, and then it was over. The life of observation is not obsessive. It is a human life venturing out of one's small shed, out of one's small domicile, and out to mingle with the others and finding out who all is here and what they are up to. And when you leave my building in New York and you cross Central Park West and into the park, you meet up with the joy of the city, which is not widely written about. People from the Midwest think of New York as a city of terrible danger and crime and cruelty. But when you take time to observe it up close, it's an entirely different place. It's a place of great kindness. I'm an old man. I have walked around New York. I have fallen 3 times, and every time I fell, within 5 seconds, I was surrounded by 4 people asking if I was okay.
There's still kindness in New York, they say.
Yes.
You know, you do seem to have a genuine admiration for, I don't know, just call it a new generation, whatever the name is. But you wrote recently, the bigs are still around, but the young and ambitious have found new roads. Podcasting, for example, in which you pitch your own tent, invent your brand, and see who stops to look at the goods. I find this sort of astonishing and wonderful. I look at the young and see how their ambition is to make their own good and productive life rather than win the silver trophy or be admitted to the big shot society. What do you find so promising about this new generation you talk about sometimes?
I don't know this new generation. I should be more familiar with it. They don't come to me asking for advice, nor should they. I, however, growing up in Anoka, Minnesota, was handed a copy of the New Yorker magazine in the 8th grade by a teacher, Frayne Anderson. And he said, "I thought this might interest you." I remember his exact words. I remember the magazine. And I read A.J. Liebling's piece about the road back to Paris, and I wanted to be that writer. I wanted to write for that magazine. So I had my eye on the big prize. I won it, sort of, but it didn't turn out to be that big a deal. But I wanted to have this radio show that I had to relive my childhood in a way. But I admire people who start small and want to be true to their own vision.
If you don't mind, I may end with a more personal question. I think people would be surprised that the guy who often talks about growing up as part of a fundamentalist sect didn't join everyone else and get as far from Christianity as possible. I do want. What keeps you in the pews on Sunday, so to speak? Is it just the singing?
No, it's not just the singing. I'm an Episcopalian. I love the Book of Common Prayer. I love the Eucharistic service on Sunday morning. And it is a beautiful time when I walk in the door of St. Michael's and down the aisle. It's a church with a great variety of people. It was formed by a merger of a black Anglican church and a white Episcopalian church. All sorts of people here. But this is the place where you escape from yourself. You leave yourself behind, and you sit and you face your Creator, and you face the message of the gospel. You forget about your career. You forget about your ambition. You leave your regrets behind. You confess your sins. They all disappear, and this is a magical time in which it is possible to change your life and be redeemed. And one can hardly pass this opportunity of grace.
Garrison Keillor is still a one-man content-generating machine. We'll have links to all the places we've been talking about, where he's still updating in the show post for this show. But Garrison Keillor, thank you for joining This is Nashville.
My pleasure, Mr. Farmer. Good luck to you.
We'll leave you with a song from 1994 when Prairie Home Companion was performed at the Ryman 20 years after Garrison Keillor had come on his fateful writing assignment for The New Yorker to chronicle the Opry leaving its home. He sings about his first trip to Nashville and falling in love with the radio variety show on stage.
I remember when I took the train back in 73. See the Grand Ole Opry down in Nashville, Tennessee. I didn't know that you had to pay. The tickets all were gone that day. I stood out in the parking lot and heard the show for free. It was the Ryman Auditorium, and it rose up proud and high. It was in the summer, all the windows open wide. I scooched down behind the wall. I could almost see them all, the sequins and the smiles, the musicians side by side. And there was Porter, and there was Dolly Parton, and Ernest Tubb, and Bill Monroe, Roy Acuff, Grant Turner, who announced the Opry show, dressed up like a country girl. From Grinder's Switch came Minnie Pearl, just so proud to be here, and everybody loved her so. And the music came pouring out the windows, and it found you, songs full of sorrow, longing for home. You like to cry, but music seems to put its arms around you. Music so sweet and low. Well, there were dusty cars and pickups in the parking lot that night. The sun went down, the air was cool, the stage seemed twice as bright. We ran and stood by a big show bus. Loretta Lynn, she walked right by us, and her long black hair in the flash bulbs, and her dress was pure white. There were pickers by the back door out here waiting to be found, and singers who were getting lost in Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. Little children in the cars lay asleep in Daddy's arms, listening to the music and that sweet
lonesome sound.
Thanks for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. It's also a podcast, so listen wherever you like or ask your smart speaker to play the latest episode. While you're at it, try the Nash Villager. Host Nina Cardona has an uncanny way of connecting today's events with Nashville's history. You won't be disappointed. I say Nash Villager in the morning. This is Nashville in the afternoon. Today's episode was produced by me, Blake Farmer. Tasha A.F. Limley is our managing editor. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The conversation doesn't end here. You can comment and tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on the socials, mostly Instagram at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.
And the fans standing in the parking lot outside the Opry door.